Packing everyone and everything in the car and escaping down the motorway was the plan. This, the reality. People stuck sometimes for 5 hours at a time in queues with major roads closed. Summer holidays started and stopped on the motorway around the port of Dover. Now, as you can see, the cars are moving more freely here today compared to the utter gridlock that we saw yesterday. But we do know that around 10,000 cars are expected to pass through the port today as that blame game between the French and the English intensifies, each blaming the other. Now, one thing that is clear is that the doomsday planning, or lack of planning, some might say, is deeply, deeply political.
And it's deeply frustrating after all the planning that we put in for that morning that it went that wrong, down to an insufficient number of resources at the French border. Now, Police Au Frontières did bring more people in during the course of the day, and that eased the situation, and we can get the traffic moving. And indeed, we started to see better throughput, but by that point in time, then the chaos had already started.
Today, French politicians said it simply wasn't true that they were to blame and pointed to Brexit checks slowing the system down. So you are ready to go on your big holiday?
Yeah, we are.
With soccer.
Right, but it's not happening.
Not at the moment.
Politics aside, it's people like Paul and Wendy who are caught in the middle and currently stranded in Dover. They should be heading off right now on a cruise. Instead, they're on the side of the motorway, having missed their ferry because of the chaos.
We left at 10 to 4 this morning, and we got as far as 2.8 miles to where the coach is being picked up, and that was the end of our journey. The rest then has been by train, 2 trains we've had to get just to get to Dover, and still waiting and missed our ferry.
You missed your ferry?
Yeah, 11:15 was the ferry, that's gone, and it looks like we're going to miss the 2 o'clock one.
Well, Paul is, by his own admission, one of life's great optimists. Next year, though, he says he thinks he'll give the ferry a miss. Travel chaos and strikes are becoming the unfortunate face of 2022. Today, passengers face long queues for trains, and airports and airlines have struggled for months with the return to normal summer demand, following 2 years in the COVID wilderness. In a summer where nothing is certain, you can be sure this is not the postcard ending people have been dreaming of.
Well, little Larry, I spoke to Richard Ballantyne, who's Chief Executive of the British Ports Association. I started by asking him if the situation today is an improvement compared to what we've seen over the last few days.
Yes, well, we're seeing that the French authorities have responded by fielding more immigration officials at the frontier, and this is helping get people through. But it is a particularly busy time.
So we have French MPs saying the British side is to blame, the UK government saying the French side is to blame. What's the truth here, do you think?
Well, the pressure is mounting at the immigration booths that are manned by French borders officials in the UK. And this is a deal we have under a special treaty with France at both the Port of Dover and Eurotunnel, etc. So at the moment, a lot of this congestion is being caused by holidaymakers and other people who want to go away for the summer, travelling across to Europe. So there was certainly yesterday particularly a kind of a lower number of people working at those booths for the French authorities. They have, to be fair, responded, and we did see a kind of gradual improvement and a flowing. Now the UK government has responsibility for the physical infrastructure, and I think it's fair to say that the French have a point when they have suggested that the UK hasn't invested in that infrastructure, which would help improve these bottlenecks. So I think there's a bit of both sides have some responsibility here.
How much of a factor is Brexit here?
Well, I don't think Brexit particularly helps, but I have to say in this case, this is not really a Brexit issue. Immigration, those controls existed when we were inside the EU. We weren't in Schengen, of course. So it is a consequence of the sort of post-COVID rush of people trying to get away, relatively safe journeys, going over to the continent, etc. And there were warnings to the government officials from the carriers that it would be a particularly busy time, and the government now needs to respond by working with the French to make sure that the situation doesn't keep occurring.
So you don't think the fact that passports now need to be stamped is slowing things down in any way?
Yes, the scanning of passports, and we understand why, as a security measure, the UK authorities want to do this. And also the French authorities now have to stamp our passports going into Europe. So it does take a little bit longer than it did before.
Can you be confident that anyone planning a holiday or hoping to head to continental Europe is not going to end up stuck in a queue in the next few days then?
Well, I hope so. And indeed, actually, this is a personal point, but I'm due to travel to the continent later this week by car through the short straits. So very much hoping that the situation is resolved. I think now we're moving out of COVID. We don't have all those COVID travel restrictions and requirements. The ports are getting used to what the arrangements are for Brexit. Travellers know what their plans should be, etc. So hopefully in the short term, things will ease.
Richard Ballantyne, I hope you don't end up in a queue soon, but if you do, we'll send a camera to find you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.